Great. Well, good morning, everyone. Welcome to WebCamp. I'm Dena Debry from Stanford Web Services, and I'm joined today with Cynthia Mijares, also from Stanford Web Services. And today we're going to give you a lightning introduction to Stanford Sites. We offer this training once a month, a slightly longer version, not a lot longer, but a little bit longer version. The next session is on May 13th at 11 a.m. and we have another one coming up on June 3rd at 11 a.m. Our goal in the session, I think, is to give you an overview of the kinds of things that you can do on the newer version of Stanford Sites. We may discuss things a little bit for those of you who used our older version of Stanford Sites on Drupal 7. This will be talking about Stanford Sites on Drupal 9. And before I hand it over to Cynthia to give a demo, I will talk a little bit about the service model for Stanford Sites. It's a little bit different than our Drupal 7 product. So for those of you who may have used our older version of Stanford Sites, it was very much a sort of web development playground. It had tons of features. You kind of had to know how to use them. And we've taken a very different approach with the newer version of Stanford Sites. We've really tried to make an authoring experience that is hopefully delightful and easy. The platform uses the newer version of the Stanford Identity Guide. It has been rigorously tested for accessibility. And we do new releases on the platform at a regular cadence. And you can actually look at that user guide that Tori linked in chat. There is actually a roadmap on there of features that we are working on right now, as well as release notes from our past releases. So when we create a new feature on Stanford Sites, we roll it out to the entire platform at the same time, and you can choose to use the new feature or not. I will also mention two other things that we can perhaps have a few moments to touch on today. One is that we also have an intranet version of Stanford Sites that is for private sites behind SUNET authentication. And we also have a sub-theming service for changing the look and feel on Stanford Sites. And for some of you, particularly those of you in the School of Engineering, you will have some different options because they have their own sub-theme for that, but some of you may also be on versions of Stanford Sites that look a little bit different than what Cynthia will show you today, and that may be because you have a sub-theme on there. And I'm hoping we'll have some time to ask questions at the end of the session, but if not, while Cynthia is giving a demo, I am happy to answer questions in chat, so feel free to pop them in there and we can sort of multitask a little bit. And with no further ado, I will pass it over to Cynthia.
Okay, thanks, Dena. I'm going to share my screen. And this is the link that Tori has been graciously sharing in the chat several times in there. So if you don't have it, I will post it in there again one more time. This is basically our agenda for today. So if you scroll down on this page, it's going to cover pretty much everything that we're going to talk about today. And if you ever have questions or can't remember how to do something, you can always come back here and link to how to add a new paragraph or any other item. Also, at the top of the page is a link to the training demo site and also a link to register for a training session. So if someone you know missed today's session or would like to, or you'd like to attend a future training, again, we do these monthly, like Dena mentioned, and there's a link to register for any of the upcoming sessions. So this is a link to the training demo site that I will be using today, and there's no login where you have access to do anything. It's purely just to follow along. So here is my intro to Stanford Sites training. When you do request a site, you will get a site that's already populated with content. So you will have some placeholder text as well as some imagery to get you started, and you can edit your page or you can just delete the pages there and start from scratch. So let me go over some of the basics of Drupal 9 compared to other versions of Drupal or Stanford Sites that we have used on campus. So Drupal 9 is really based on what we call paragraphs, or these components. And I like to refer to them as Legos. So if you have a whole bunch of Lego stacks, you can rearrange them in any different way that you want. And we would all have a different Lego stack at the end of our session. So when I refer to these components or paragraphs or Legos, this is what I'm talking about. So at the top, of course, this is our banner. And the banner has an option for an overlay text, which you can position to the right or the left, depending on your photo. There are several different text areas with different styles, so you can align your text to the right or to the left or to the center. There are multiple button styles here, large buttons, sort of secondary buttons. You can see that I've been playing, like this was something I added last month, and they're just various different text boxes. Text areas is what they're called. And here's another banner that doesn't have any overlay text. So you could always add another block of imagery just to break up your page, possibly. Then we get into something called cards, and it looks like a card. So there's options here for adding imagery to your card. You can add what we call a superhead, which is a nice way to group your cards. If you have cards that are around research or cards for faculty, it's a nice way to have a secondary or an overarching label. And then of course your headline, a little blurb of text, and a link. So this usually will link to an internal page on your site, or it could link out. So here's something called an action link. Here's a button link, and this one has an email. You'll notice that the spacing, there's a giant white space here, and I'll show you how to create that, because when we do add things, we add them in what we call rows. So these two cards happen to be in a single row, and this card below is also in another row. And to make that equidistant, we add something called a spacer, and that's what this area is here. It's just a spacer. If I didn't have the spacer, then this card would take up the full width of your row or your page. Okay. I'm going pretty quickly, so I see, yes, Dena's monitoring chat, so thank you. Okay. I'm going to buzz through the different types of paragraphs, and then maybe we can hop to some questions if it's appropriate. So let me continue on. This was the card. The next one is what we call media with caption. And this is a nice way to represent either imagery or videos in sort of a gallery type of format. And again, with these, you can link to, this one happens to link to YouTube videos. This one links to, I have it linking to an event on the site, but they can link to an internal page on your site or an external page. And this is an image gallery. I went bunny crazy. The difference between the image gallery and media with caption is these actually link out, but if I click on these, they also look like a link, but it does this light box. So it's literally the image gallery, and it has an overlay, and it's a beautiful large image, which you can add captions to or not. So this one has a little caption. And these are some other ways to group your content. Teaser items. This is a list of events. Some other events here. We might not get to that structured content today, because I want to really cover what we call the basic page and all of the components for building. But I will put a plug in for a session I'm doing tomorrow morning, which is beyond the basic page. So we'll get to talk about structured content, taxonomy terms, creating lists, teasers, and some other things that you can do in building your site. Okay, now that we've got to the footer area, there you can see the web login link is down at the bottom. So I'm just going to log in. Is there anything that I should point out, Dena, at the moment?
Doing good. I'm answering a couple questions in chat.
Okay, sounds good. I will just continue on. Let me know if there's something we want to call out. Okay. So now that I've logged in, you can see that I've got all of my headers above, and I'm going to just change my user name here. When you log in, you will get something called Site Manager, which will give you everything. You won't have the administrator level. So you'll get something called Site Manager. Okay. So now that we've logged in as a site manager, here are all the different things that you can do. And you'll notice if I hover over, there's now an edit button for the page. So I'm just going to go in and edit this so you can see sort of that Lego format I was talking about. So here are all the various different paragraphs, and you can see how they're stacked, and you can see all of the different rows that we have. So on the right-hand side is where all the different types of paragraphs are that are available. And as the product continues to develop, these may have different variations, or this list may grow. We might have a new paragraph type, but everything that's available for site building is over here on the right-hand side. You can see that based on the icon, these are text areas, and what I've done, so here's a text area. What I've done is labeled these. So if I edit this particular text area, it's not very, let's just say this is for students. This is my students little paragraph or intro text. I can label the administration label at the top called students, and this is not visible to the end user. It's purely for the editor to identify on this page amongst the sea of all the paragraphs that this one is for students. So I quickly identify that one. Okay, let me get back into that text area so you can see what it looks like. These are your typical bulleted lists and styles and bold, italics, similar to Microsoft, if you're familiar with all of that. Here is our anchors, our link icon, some anchors, bullets, tables. This is quotes, media, this is where you insert. Nice thing is when you hover, it tells you exactly what it is. Insert from the media library, etc. So once I select something, I can add headings, or I can add different styles. So multiple different styles here. Okay. So that's a text area. Let's look at a card. I have one here. And this doesn't have any info, so no image card. But you can see that there is a sort of limited different description. So you only have bold, italics. You can add a link, but there's not much here because it's meant to be a teaser, or it's meant to be it's meant to be a teaser to something else, whether it's something on your site, a page on your site, or linking off to an external page. Here is that superhead, which is sort of that nice way to categorize things. You've got your headline, a little bit of text, and here's the link. This one happens to be a mail to link, but if I'm linking to something within the site, I always recommend typing the page. So I know I want to link to the resources page. I start typing resources and it pops up. And that's how you link to things within the site. So you'll notice that it goes to node 7, and I'm not going to remember node 7 is the resources page. So if for any reason down the line, the resources page changes its title, so instead of resources, maybe it's our resources. Sometimes when we change the page titles, the URLs will change and could cause broken links. And in this, by adding your URL in this way, you will avoid potentially having broken links throughout your site. So that is how to add an internal link. I had the mail to is just that. The link text, and this is the way that the link will display. So here's that action link, and here's the button link. Because I have a mail to an email, it will actually insert a little email icon. Okay, so that's a card. Media with caption. Oh, I skipped banner. Let's go to banner. Here's a banner. Go edit that, take a look. So banner, again, it's very similar to card. It's got a super head, it's got a headline, a little body, URL, and link text. The difference here is that now there's options. So on the left-hand side, this is the content area, and then the style tab is where you would add your position of your overlay, to the right or to the left. So this one just happens to be the banner without any overlay. That's why there's nothing filled in. So if you don't have these filled in, of course, there will not be any overlay displayed, which is nice. Okay, and that holds true for any of the other fields on any of the other types of paragraphs. If you don't fill in the field, then nothing will display on the front end. Okay. So media with caption. You can see here's my little kind of mountain. Looks like a mountain to me. Here's an example here. Similar, again, similar to the card where you've got an image, or this says media item, that happens to be an image or a video. My descriptive text, or they're calling it caption, link, and text. So let me actually get in here and add something. So by default, there's this add media button, and it takes me to my media library. So as I mentioned earlier, when you get your site, you have some default images that you can choose from to populate your site, or you can select a file that you have locally on your computer and upload a new image. So for media with caption, it could be an image, or you can see on the right, on the left side, that we can upload an image or a video. So every time I upload images, you can see that it's saved here, and these are all the previous images I've uploaded over time. And I can reuse these anywhere on the site. Same holds true for videos. So these are videos that I've uploaded over time, and I can reuse these. So I might just choose, let's go with this video here. I think this is back to school. And I will insert. Before I insert, let me mention that to add a video, it's literally just copying the URL at the top of either YouTube or Vimeo, or both of those platforms have a share option, and you can just copy that. And then add your videos. So I have selected that one. Okay. And continue. It still says media with caption, but I probably, I want to identify it. If you have a lot of, maybe a video page and you've got like a dozen videos, it's nice to always just label this what it is. Back to school. That way, when I'm looking at my edit screen, I can see that, oh, there's the back to school video. and I wanted to make an edit there. Okay. So that's what I wanted to really make sure we cover today. A lot of your site building will include either text areas, cards, maybe media with caption, teasers, lists, gallery. That stuff we'll probably cover tomorrow. So we talk about like beyond the basic page. Let me show you the spacer, which I have here. It's literally just nothing. There's nothing to edit. It's just space. Okay. So now that we've looked at several of these paragraph types, and I've shown you what it looks like on the editing side, how do we actually stack and rearrange our page? Okay, so here's an intro text area. The nice thing with this is I use these drag handles. Well, first, how do we add one? At the bottom, there's something called add new row. So I can click that and I can select any one of these and drag it into my row. You can see that it says drag and drop paragraph into row, and it says that we can have 3 per row. So I'm going to just drag it in here, add, yeah. Okay. Let me get some more Ipsum stuff. Probably don't need that much. And I'm going to link it to our maybe about page. Obviously, it's not going to be there. And I'm going to have a button. Okay. Once I create this card, I can drag the row either up or down on the page using the drag handles. Or I can grab the actual component itself and move it to different areas. So I want to stack it next to this text area here, and I'm going to drop it. So now I have a card and a text area in the same row. Again, I can drag that up and down, or I can drag them individually, up to 3 in a row. Let's see, what else? Editing. We talked about editing. Also down here, you can also delete. If you decide that you don't want to use that paragraph, you can delete it here. Or on the right-hand side, there's 3 dots and I can delete the entire row. Okay. Lots of activity in chat. Is anything that you want me to point out, Dena? Or we're all good still?
Sort of, yeah. All
okay.
good. Keep going.
Okay. Well, this is, of course, your homepage is probably going to be the busiest, right? With lots of different paragraphs and sections and rows and different things. But most of our pages might suffice having just a text area. So let's take a look at that. Actually, I'm not going to save this page. I'm just going to go back and show you what happens. So sometimes people click the back button and just want to look at something or can't remember. And what happens normally is you click the back button and everything that you've done gets lost and we're sad. So what we've done is if you click the back button or the back arrow on your browser, it says that the changes you made may not be saved. And it wants you to confirm that, yes, indeed, I want to leave and not save any of my changes. Okay. Let's take a look at a subpage here. Or actually, let's create a page. Okay, at the top, where it says all content, we can add content, and here are all the various different content types we can add. Today, we're just going to focus on the basic page. So from the beginning, this is all we have. You can see there's nothing here. I can drag and drop. We're just going to call give the page a title. And I can have a top banner. The difference between top banner and this banner is that the top banner will display above your page title. So it's a nice idea for maybe landing pages on your site. Certainly the home page is a nice place to have that top banner, but you don't necessarily need to always have a top banner because we can add something within the body. So let me just do that. Add a banner. I'm going to have add some media, and we'll go with my surfboard here. Okay. And I just want a nice picture at the top of my page. So I'm going to leave that. And then I want to add a text area. And again, I'm going to grab some placeholder content, put that on my page. And as you can see, like sometimes the page gets super long. Just a little web tip. It's always a nice idea to have headings because headings makes your page more scannable and readable. And always start with a heading too. Nice tip. Especially I see Jatian on there. So accessibility tips. All right. Now that we're in here, let's see, we're doing good on time. I'm going to show you how to insert images. You can insert a video, insert a file, but that's always like a popular thing. So if I know I'm in here and I want to insert an image of maybe the person that this is about. Oh, let me do that again. So there's an icon here for inserting media from the media library. I'm going to click on that icon and it brings up my media library. So again, I can look for images here. I can do a find for the image file name if I know what the file name is. I can also choose from other forms of media to insert from embeddables. And we always say that depending on what the embeddable is, it might be something that you could reach out to Stanford Web Services to help you with something that's a little more complicated on your embeddables. But there's files, Google Forms, and videos. I'm just going to go with this guy here at the top. I'm going to insert the image. And wow, that looks beautiful. It is massive. So what we want to do, it's always good to have a large size image, right? Just in case. And in the user guide, there's a page on image sizes, image styles, so you know what's the correct proportions are, you know, that you want to upload, aspect ratios, etc. You can refer to the user guide. So what I did is click the edit media button, and here's my alt text, which I can change if necessary. I can align my text to the left, center, right. None just puts it over to the left. So I'm going to align it to the right. I can add a caption if I want to. And actually, say hello. And I can choose my display. So default is that large image. And we have included several preset sizes, and you can see what the size is, or the pixel width, whether it's cropped or uncropped. And I'm going to go with a circle headshot. And click save. So there is my guy right there to the right. And you can see that the text flows nicely around it. So that is inserting an image. Okay. All right. So as you know that, or at least for me, when I'm creating pages, it's never ready to go the first time around. So it's always in a state of draft until everyone gets to look at it, or I'm really happy with it. So because this is a draft, I'm going to scroll down to the bottom and I'm going to uncheck that published checkbox that says that the page is not going to be published and it's still in draft. I'm also going to add it to the menu. So right here is our menu settings. And I'm going to provide a menu link that WebCamp is fun. There's an optional description that says if I hover over the menu link, it's going to tell me what it is. So if this, I always recommend this, if you have a really long title and you're trying to shorten it to display in your menu, you can always have the full title here or a description of what it is. So if someone hovers over your menu link, it'll tell you exactly what is that page. So that's your description. So WebCamp is fine. I don't really want to have it in my main top level navigation. I want to nest it. And you can see I've been nesting everything in my about section. So I'm going to continue and I'm going to choose about as my new parent. And you can see that the menu has changed to everything that's in the about section. And I can move this to wherever I want to by using the drag handles. And I will just, there's a good place right there. Since I'm in here and I moved the new page wherever I wanted, I have the ability to move any of these other pages in case I need to. So that's an option. You can always rearrange your menu order just by using the drag handles. Okay. So we've got it in the menu, it's not published, and I've got some text on the page. So let's take a look at what that looks like. Okay. So you can see here's the banner, and instead of having it be full width, like the top banner, it's actually in the content body, and you'll see all the sidebar navigation. There's also this giant yellow banner at the top that says this page is currently unpublished. So this is super convenient because if I'm hovering over here, it also signifies that, yep, it's not published. But it's a nice way to have it be in your website, have a link that's shareable to other people who may need to review this page, but not have it visible to people who are not logged in. Okay, so here's our page. Our banner, text area, we inserted an image. Okay. Once it's ready to go and everybody likes it, I can just come back in, edit the page, and then just check published. And then save. Okay. Yes, sidebar navigation will automatically appear, which is great. For those folks who do not want to have sidebar navigation, maybe this is a landing page for, or maybe the about page. About would be our landing page. Let's click on that. So this would be the landing page for the entire section. Sometimes your landing page might have text areas or cards that point to these other sidebar navigation pages. And you want to change your page to full width, you can do that. Like Dena's mentioning layout. So here in layout options, currently by default it says none, but if I choose full width and save this page, then the sidebar navigation goes away. When you do this, I always recommend having cards or teasers or text areas that will link to all of the other pages in your section, in your about section. Okay, so I'm going to just bring that back to not full width. Okay, so we've covered quite a bit. It's 10:36. I know there's about 10 minutes left in our session. I can talk a little bit more, or if there's other things and any questions that I can cover at this point, or I can dive a little bit deeper into some other things that we can do. What do you think, Dena?
Good. We did have a question about importing. We do have a people importer and an events importer. I actually think the people importer is a great way to quickly get people populated to your website. We can import people from work groups. We can import people by individual student ID, or we can import people by budget code. So getting a listing of people on your site can be fast, and that way you give people control over their own information, what's public and what's private, and over their photo, which I think is terrific.
Mm-hmm.
We also have a question about, and people can come off mute too if they just want to ask them, but Anne asks why you would add cards, links to other nav items. I'm not sure actually, are you thinking about other pages to other nav items, or go ahead, Cynthia.
Yeah, I think I was mentioning if you have sort of a landing page, it's nice to have a card that will point to another page in this section. So that's essentially what the home page is doing right now. So we have these little text areas and then a link to something in your site. So maybe this is your faculty section, and you want to introduce faculty and then link to see all our faculty, something like that. It could be a text area, or it could be a card that is just a little teaser to something. Maybe this is a news article, and read the full article. That's what I was referring to.
Give a little more context to give people a little idea about what they're clicking on. Sometimes a menu item is a little bare, I think.
Mm-hmm.
We should also mention that, by default, the site has really standard navigation across the top and then sidebar navigation for the child levels, but you can turn on a drop-down menu for people who like drop-down menus.
In fact, I think I have that on here. I do have it on. So under the excuse me, configuration system, I believe it's in the site settings. Yeah, there's a checkbox to use the drop-down menus. There's also a checkbox to hide the site search. Depending on your site, maybe it's a personal website and you have a single page. Maybe you don't need a site search, so you can just get rid of that. Since I'm in configuration, there are other things here. You can take a look at the users and grant them permissions. This is under system. There are things like the local footer, the lockup settings. Well, actually, let's take a look at the local footer. The local footer has multiple sections in here for we call action and social links. And again, these are kind of pre-populated. If you don't need a contact us, you can just always delete these and it will go away. Same thing with social links. You can populate your own department Facebook page, Instagram, Twitter, etc. Or if you don't have a Facebook page, just delete it. You can always add things. Here's some links sections, primary and secondary link sections. You can have this be custom to your site. Maybe it's affiliated programs or resources or something like that. And these happen to be external links as well as internal links. There's a section for a sign-up form. MailChimp, if you use that. The login button, which is literally just the text for the login. This is the local lockup, which is how your department displays, or center or whatever, displays its name. And that you can always refer to the identity.stanford.edu for guidelines on how your site should be represented. But there's lots and lots of options here for displaying lines or not displaying the lines. If you have your own logo, you can always upload that and replace the Stanford logo. You can do that here. And then we give you some optional content blocks. So I know like in student affairs, or I believe it's student affairs, they always have a blurb of like, this department is part of student affairs, and you can just have a text block here. So that is the local footer.
We had a good question about cloning pages. We do have the ability to clone pages, which can be really useful if you're like, hey, that's how we're going to build all of our research or project pages. It's got all the paragraphs on it. You can clone it and then swap out the content. So you can kind of make yourself some templates.
Yeah, under here, under all content, if I just click there, this will be all the pages in your site. And then there's a content tab. There's also a media tab. So this is all the media in your site. So typically for content, like if you wanted to, a common one is events. Like you have an event and you have a nice template. You just want to duplicate that. Any one of these pages, I can check it and then select an action here from the drop down. And one of them is clone. All right. Any other questions? I know we have a few minutes left.
We did have one question about what module we use to clone our pages, and I'm not sure that I know, but I'm wondering if Ian Monroe, who is in this session, knows what module we use to clone our pages.
I think we're just using node clone. And I think that there are some specific pieces that we are doing custom, but I think that Mike is probably the right person to ask about that.
Thanks, Ian.
All right. Well, in the final moments, if there's one last question, we probably have time for that. And we'll set you free to go to other camp sessions.
Yes. I will say that the user guide is a wealth, like the treasure chest of all the information I covered today, as well as all the other things that you can do with Stanford sites. If you have questions about it or need support, it's all here. Also, there's a What's New tab, which is the roadmap for what's coming up. So we do have releases like every quarter or so you can see what's coming up on the roadmap, as well as any known issues and things. All of the building and designing section for structured content is in here. So bookmark the user guide is what I always say. And thanks everyone for joining us this morning. There's also the session I'll be doing tomorrow morning, same time, which is beyond the basic page. So we'll talk more about all of the structured content and creating fun things like lists of things or teasers and some other fun stuff.